before the O.J. Simpson case got everyone talking about domestic violence, Denver was listening to the thousands of women who call for help each month. Their men are beating them, sometimes killing them. Family violence can start early and run for generations.
Inevitably, the question always comes up, how many children do you have? I always say 2. I have a son who's 26, and I have a daughter who would have been 25, but she was killed 3 years ago.
Ginger Green, her husband, and son will never truly feel complete as a family again because, except for old pictures and movies and memories, Margot is gone.
She was the ray of sunshine in our life. She was the exuberant one, the one that always kept us going and livened the party, kind of like a cheerleader for the family.
Margot does sound like a parent's ideal, popular and outgoing, a cheerleader who always studied hard and was always first in her class, a perfect daughter. Until, when she was 14, she met and fell in love with a man named Eric Price. He was 21. 3 years later, they were engaged.
We immediately said, no, you shouldn't get married. You haven't even started your senior year of high school. Give yourself a chance.
But they did get married, and soon there were disturbing signs of trouble.
He called her fatso and took food away off of her plate, and she barely weighed 90 pounds. He called her stupid and dummy on a regular basis, and she was getting straight A's.
After 3 years, Margot finally realized Eric's love was actually emotional abuse. But leaving him and moving into her own apartment would mean even greater danger.
About a week after she was in the apartment, he broke in about 2 o'clock in the morning and went to the kitchen and got a knife and threatened her, put the knife to her stomach.
She moved back to her parents' house, and a judge ordered Eric to stay away. Her family thought Margot was finally safe, not knowing that sometimes when the victim tries to flee, the abuser becomes more enraged. On a May morning in 1991 in downtown Denver traffic, Eric smashed his car into Margot's. When she got out, he shot her 7 times, and then used the same gun, a Tech-9 semi-automatic, on himself. Both of them died. Margot Green is not an isolated case. In Colorado alone, almost 24 women are killed each year by men who once claimed to love them. And going to court often didn't help. Women living in fear said it often left them feeling intimidated and overwhelmed. So the court in Denver, in an effort to try to save these lives, decided to make things easier.
This is courtroom 303W of the Civil Division, Judge Jacqueline St. John presiding.
Good afternoon. Please be seated. And welcome.
You won't hear many judges say welcome that way, but Jacqueline St. John says the women who come here should feel that someone wants to listen to them.
He's punched me, he's bruised and broken my ribs, he spits on me, he kicks me in the head, and he's caused you to have black eyes and broken ears.
This is one of the few courts in the entire country that is set up just for restraining orders, judicial rulings that abusers must stay away from those they abuse.
He stole my car last night, and he took one of my kids when he did it.
And how old is she?
She's 4 years old.
Has he threatened to kill you?
Yes.
Has he threatened the children?
He's threatened the daughter that he has now.
A threat to kill very often will accompany or precede an act of violence, and the fear is very, very real. I see very scared but courageous people every day speaking out loud something they've never talked about before.
He struck me several times in the face. My 12-year-old daughter had to jump out a bedroom window and go get help.
Are those the marks on your face?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you approach the bench, please?
You often ask women to approach the bench.
Well, anyone that I see beginning to cry, anyone I see beginning to get a look on their face that is vulnerable. There's about 15 feet between me and that podium, and sometimes that's just too far to really communicate with another human being about something so tender.
My eardrum was ruptured.
Your eardrum is ruptured.
So I'm shaking.
Are you having trouble hearing?
A little bit.
Often, the route to Judge St. John's courtroom begins on the streets of Denver.
Kill that man. And my sweet kid, I got 2 kids crying.
On one night patrol, Officer Colin Reese might answer a half-dozen calls about domestic violence.
I'm really concerned about the side of your face here.
The abusers come from all different backgrounds and neighborhoods. All they appear to have in common before the hitting starts is that most have been drinking or taking drugs, or both.
They've been in a 5-year relationship already, and this is the second time this has happened within 2.5 years.
Any alcohol involved here?
On both parties' parts.
What I need you to do is put an X where it needs structure, and a no.
According to Officer Reese, there is also this. Very often, family violence is a family secret.
People consider what goes on in their own home very private. A lot of people feel, well, what I do in my own home is my own business. I can handle this. We don't need the police to be here.
What do we got? If it is hard for them to ask for help, there's no question that abused women need it. National groups say many will try to leave their abusers 5 or 6 times before they actually manage to get away. Do you have a general goal in these cases?
To stop the violence. To stop the violence and to try to reinforce peace in the home and peace in the family, peace in the community. I mean, if court orders would work and if people follow them, then people can rely on this as an instrument for protection.
Last year, the Sheriff's Office delivered more than 1,700 of these restraining orders signed by the judge.
Captain, I've got a restraining order here for you.
These deputies showed up suddenly at this house with no-nonsense instruction.
It is hereby ordered that you, the defendant, do not to contact, threaten, molest, or injure the plaintiff wherever she may be found. Do not touch, talk, or write to the plaintiff for any reason.
Do you ever worry that a woman gets a restraining order and it gives her a false sense of security?
Yeah. I do worry about that. I will say every day to the people who are there, we don't know whether this particular person will obey the restraining order or not. And in case they don't, you have to have a safety plan. You have to think through what will you do if this person violates the restraining order, if I'm put in danger again, and make that plan and follow through with it.
Hey, can I ask you a question? How can your wife do that to you? She feels threatened. She doesn't feel safe at this residence. Evidently there was some sort of an altercation. She can go down to the protective orders court and she can get the restraining order. And that's exactly what she's done. What kind of rights do I have? You have a right to go to the hearing.
It is a stunning and sometimes angry encounter, as with this man, manager of a consulting firm whose 10-year marriage has collapsed into a 15-minute grace period to get out of his house.
Mister, come over here. All right? Now, let me tell you again. It'll cause more problems for yourself, okay? You need to vacate the premises. You understand me? Do you understand? Yes, sir.
Moments later, he drove off, and his wife, no longer afraid to be in her own home, returned.
You ran into him and you didn't want to.
From the time she appeared before Judge St. John earlier that afternoon, the whole process took no more than a couple of hours. What do you hope that the women take away from your courtroom?
I'm hoping that everyone who comes in there, first of all, wakes up, that what they've been through and the process in the courtroom as well helps them to wake up so that they become more aware of what they're doing. Like somebody just sort of says, hey, you got to get yourself together here.
Ready?
Christy Cook lived a violent nightmare for years before she finally fought back through St. John's Court.
If God takes me, then it's different. But I'm not going to let no man take me. Not my life, not taking it away from my child.
When we talked to Christy, she was in a shelter for battered women after months of running and hiding. The first time that he hit you, afterwards, did you think that was, well, that's not going to happen again?
I thought, well, maybe I deserved it and that he wasn't going to do it anymore and that we could go on with our relationship because he said I won't do it no more.
Christy's ex-boyfriend and the father of her child is Jamal Sims. He's been jailed 7 times for beating her, including a felony conviction for assault, behavior that he blames on drinking in his own violent childhood. How many times did you hit her? 10, 20, 30, 40?
I'll say about 30 plus.
What was it that she would do that would make you hit her?
She knew the traumas and that I have been through as a child. And she would tend to try to push those buttons. She might keep going and saying the same thing. And I wouldn't know no other way to stop it. Maybe hit her then she would be quiet.
Did he ever threaten to kill you?
Yes. Told me if I left him, he would kill me and cut me up in small pieces. Put me in a black bag and bury me up in the mountains. No one would ever find me.
Just 5 days after Jamal was released from jail for an earlier attack, there was another beating, a terrible beating. How bad did it get?
The last time he hit me, he broke my jaw.
You hit her more than once. You hit her again and again?
Yes.
You grabbed her by the hair and flipped over?
Yes.
Then you hit her again?
Yeah.
Now you get tears in your eyes and you cry now. You can cry when you hit her.
Well,
Christy spent over 3 hours in the operating room with doctors trying to repair the damage. That arrow on the bottom of the x-ray is pointing to her jaw. The jagged line is where it was broken. When you sobered up and saw pictures of her with black eyes, swollen face, broken jaw, and you knew you had caused that, what did you think?
that I was turning out like my dad made me feel like an animal.
Do you think that batterers can get help through psychological treatment?
I think some can. I think the research is not very encouraging because unfortunately for some batterers, they just go from one woman to the next.
Is this the break?
Yep. We went right through the bed of the two.
Will I ever get the feeling back in my jaw?
Probably not. The break went right through where the nerve travels through there. Okay, open your mouth real wide for me. Jamal's attack actually knocked loose all of Christy's teeth. They've been wired in place for 5 months, and today the wires come off. Okay, just take a rest.
I never feel the pain that she felt. They could send me to jail forever, but I'll never feel the pain that she felt. And that's why it hurts. Because I can't get that back to her, no matter what I do.
For the months of suffering he caused, the broken bones, the cracked teeth, the pain and fear, Jamal Sims served less than 2 months in jail. He could go back for 3 years if he even comes near Christy again. And she believes that someday he will try.
I'm terrified. I'm scared of him seeing me on the bus. I'm scared of him seeing me walking down the street. Because he'll look for me. I think he's capable of killing me.
Christy Cook may never really feel safe again because she believes her life could end the way Margot Green's did. Probably every woman who's been beaten lives with that fear.
What do you think when you hear the term domestic violence? Does it make you think of a woman with a black eye, bruises?
It would be easier for Margot's mother to hide away the lessons of her daughter's life.
If a guy walked up to you on your first date and punched you in the mouth, you wouldn't go out with him again.
Instead, Ginger Green has transformed Margot's murder into a personal mission to save other young lives.
Physical abuse.
In schools and community meetings all around Denver, she tells the story of domestic violence and the death of Margot Green.
Her death has been so real and has touched so many people that they truly have identified with Margot and realized this could happen to me.
It has never been easy to be a Negro in Alabama. Times have often been bad, and they've never been good. But there's always been cotton to plant, to chop, to pick, and to plow. Cotton has been a misery, but at least it's been a meal ticket. Now, it's not even that. The machines have taken over, and a field that once needed 100 Negroes today barely supports 3. 10 years ago, machines harvested only 2% of Alabama's cotton. This year, they will harvest more than 80%. The Negroes must look elsewhere for jobs, and the jobs are not in Alabama. some go north. Many others remain, often because they are so poor, so tired, and so hungry that they can't even get up and go. In the long history of black belt deprivation, there have never been times as bad as these. Last spring, the Field Foundation sent 6 prominent doctors to investigate hunger in Mississippi. One of these was Dr. Raymond Wheeler, who has lived and practiced in the South all his life. We asked Dr. Wheeler to visit Hale County, Alabama.
Slow starvation has become part of the Southern way of life. The apathy and the violence, the ironic but brutal contrast that pass for Southern traditions are impossible to believe until you've seen them.
You have how many children to feed?
10.
10 children?
Yeah.
Are there times when you don't have enough food at the house to go around?
Yes, lots of time.
There are times
Just have to make out what I have, give each one of them a little what I have.
What did you have for dinner today?
I didn't have any dinner.
You're going to have a baby before long.
Yes.
What kind of food do you eat?
Rice. Chicken sometimes.
What else do you eat?
That's all. Water.
Mrs. Anders, what does your husband do for a living?
He gets a job in hayfields.
In hayfields?
Yes.
How much does he make when he's working?
From $3 to $4 a day.
$3 to $4 a day?
Yes.
And he hasn't worked now in 3 or 4 weeks?
Yes.
Do you get food stamps?
No, because I'm not able to get them.
Why?
I ain't got them this month. They cost $70 and I don't have it.
Have you asked for any help from anyone in raising the money to buy those stamps?
No, sir, there ain't no need.
Why?
They ain't gonna give it to you.
Have you been down to the welfare department and talked to them, or has your husband?
No, so the last time I went to the welfare, the lady told me, said if you have a living husband, that they couldn't give you no help.
Even if he's not working?
Yes.
3 weeks after talking to Dr. Wheeler, Mrs. Anders gave birth to a severely malnourished baby. 2 days later, the baby died. Alabama's solution to hunger in 15 counties is the federal food stamp program. The U.S. Department of Agriculture sponsors the program, but it is administered locally by the states and counties. Each county has a central office where the stamps are sold.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Food stamps are a means of giving a family a bonus. For a cash payment, $25 for instance, a family receives food stamps worth much more money, perhaps $70 or $80. The stamps, in other words, are worth much more than the cash paid for them.
It has a $2 stamp in it that looks like this. Your green book is worth $3. It has a 50-cent stamp in it for small items. Your white book is worth $2.
The cost of stamps varies from family to family. Coupons worth $80, for instance, may cost one family $40 and another only $15. This cost is set by local officials. Many factors affect the cost, such as the size of the family, income, and how much the family usually spends each month for food.
Stamps. You may detach the stamps if you are in front of the cashier, but do not detach a stamp and send it to the grocery store with this.
Food stamps can be used at local grocery stores and supermarkets. They allow a family to purchase whatever it wants in the way of food. If the family uses them wisely, stamps can provide a more balanced diet than surplus commodities. But a family may not buy food stamps a day at a time or a week at a time. They must buy a month's supply or a half-month supply all at once. For many Alabamans, it is difficult to accumulate any sum of money, even as little as $5 or $10 on a given day. What little money they do get must go immediately to pay an urgent debt or to feed an urgently hungry mouth.
78, 8. Thank you. $20.
Let's take your sweater off.
Dr. Wheeler examined the children of a family that can't afford food stamps. Their father had not worked in 5 weeks.
Way up high, like that. Come on. We've got it. Good girl. When children don't get enough to eat, their initial response to the world is mistrust. Louise? The children here get up hungry, go to bed hungry, and never know anything else in between. Got kind of a bad cold. They're hungry all the time. They can't even feel the depth of their own hunger. Even a superficial examination of these children reveals the unmistakable effects that their skimpy, monotonous meals must inevitably produce. In the first year of their lives, these children fall behind. In each subsequent year, they fall further behind, and they never catch up. Malnutrition impairs their performance for life. Hi, Charles. How old are you?
14.
You go to school?
Yes.
Do you get breakfast at home before you go?
Yes. Some have peas.
You have peas?
Yeah.
Well, when you get to school, what do you have to eat there?
Yes.
You don't have anything to eat when you're at school?
Yes.
Is there any place at school where you can buy something to eat or get something to eat? Do they cook a meal for you there?
Yes.
Well, why don't you have some?
I don't have money to buy.
You don't have the money to buy it?
Yeah.
How much does it cost?
25 cents.
It costs 25 cents to have something to eat at school?
Yes.
Well, what do you do while the other children are eating?
They sit there.
Where do you sit?
They sit where children be sitting.
How do you feel toward the other children who are eating when you don't have anything?
Be ashamed.
Are you ashamed?
Yeah, they're hungry.
Why are you ashamed?
I don't have any money.
Dr. Wheeler talked to a woman whose family has been sharecroppers ever since they stopped being slaves. The woman and her husband and 14 children and grandchildren still live on the farm, but it does not support them anymore.
Miss Carlisle, why don't you raise your own food?
Well, I raise this what I can. We raise that okra. We raise all stuff like that in gardens. And we can, but not no corn. That's all the food I can go in the food line.
Why no corn?
But we don't have no corn acres.
What do you mean?
The landlord said he sold the corn acres to the governor, but we can't have no corn.
Well, then who plants the corn on it?
Don't nobody plant no. Just the land for the corn lays out into nothing.
The land's there.
That's right.
But nobody plants it.
That's right. Can't plant it when you sell it to the government, and whoever sell it gets a check off. We can't raise nothing else. Just have to stay there. So we've been raising corn. Having corn to raise hogs, chickens, turkeys, so. But I can't raise them because I don't have food to feed them. Can't raise corn and I can't buy it.
Now that you can buy food stamps, aren't you able to get more food for your family?
I can't buy them every 2 weeks because I don't have the money. I don't have the $33 every 2 weeks. I don't have nobody to get it from. My husband don't make but $3 a half a day for the city. And I don't make over 22 or $23. I couldn't get the food stamp. It's just the price what they want you to pay. If you ain't got that price, why you don't get no food stamps? I just have to go along with it, because I can't do no better. None of the white people, they don't care how you live. White farm is all right. But the living problem is, you know, care too much for that.
Why is that?
They don't treat us like they used to treat us. They did used to treat us a lot better than they do. But they don't do that no more. And I imagine, I feel like it, because the children go to school together and do a little voting, something they never have did. I never known them to do it. And the younger group can speak a little more plainer, a little more for themselves than we used to do. And that's why the average of the young people is leaving home, going north, why they've been all their life. Some have never been nowhere in their life, but they're leaving Alabama, going north. Supposed to get better jobs and they're getting better treatments. The younger people. But see, we older people, we still here in it. We ain't like the young ones. That's the reason I figure they don't care where we go upstate.
How do you think they don't care?
I know they don't care. I don't have to think they don't care. I know they don't care.
The families we have visited tonight are sadly more typical than unique. Hunger can be found many places in the United States. Too many places. 10 million Americans don't know where their next meal is coming from. Sometimes it doesn't come at all. More than 1,000 counties in need of food programs have no program whatsoever. States and counties often keep out federal food programs. Surplus commodities means less food purchased in local stores, and states and counties must share in the cost of food stamps. There is also the failure of these programs themselves. Surplus commodities are free, but do not contain the right foods. Food stamps are not free, and too often the people who need them most can't afford them. The Department of Agriculture has emergency power to bring food to hungry people in any county in the United States. So far, it has been reluctant to exercise this power. In the last 2 years, the Department of Agriculture has quietly turned back to the Treasury $408 million that could have been used to feed hungry Americans. CBS News has learned that this year, the department plans to turn back to the Treasury another $227 million, more money than ever before. According to the Department of Agriculture, the existing food programs are run as efficiently as possible without this money. Meantime, American farmers in recent weeks have slaughtered and buried 14,000 hogs because, they say, there's no market for them. The Department of Agriculture protects farmers, not consumers, especially not destitute consumers. The federal food program might be better administered by the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, or by a special commission whose only concern would be to see that hungry Americans are fed. We're talking about 10 million Americans. In this country, the most basic human need must become a human right. This is Charles Kuralt for CBS Reports.
Chicago's largest public housing project. 28 buildings, 16 floors each, more than 20,000 certified residents. Poor people stacked on top of one another. Their problems multiplied, intensified.
You carry your children downstairs and they play, and you never know what's going to happen. You know, you be sitting down there playing 1 minute, and whenever the fellas get into a rage and want to start shooting, or, you know, a little scaffold come between them, you have to run, and you can't run to the elevator because who's going to wait for the elevator when somebody's shooting?
See the mama come down, look, kid raised up right there. That's all that. Them shot all around the front there, everywhere. See all that. All out in the playground.
Life at Robert Taylor is dominated by welfare, women, and children. A high percentage of Taylor residents receive public aid, and almost 90% of Taylor's households are one-parent families, one woman, that is, with an average of 4 children. At age 23, Janice Love is part of that pattern. She has only 2 children, but they represent the 3rd generation in her family to live or grow up here. For her and hundreds of other women who live here, the absence of a man in the home is considered neither unusual nor necessarily a handicap.
You can have some parents where it's just rough in the household with their man.
You got to deal with him. You have to deal with the children, and that's a burden on you too. You got someone that's just as worse as the children. You got 3. If you say you got 2 children and a man and yourself, you got 3 children. You got to look after him and the 2 children and the house. So sometimes it's all right and sometimes it isn't. For some people.
For young men growing up here, there is no manhood in going to school or landing a job. That is a loser's game. The schools are bad, jobs hard to find.
Still can't get no job just because you got a high school diploma don't mean you don't get a job. There's some hands that are looking for a job. So they look at my face, they tell me, we'll call you so-and-so, so-and-so. I done filled out about 50 applications and not one of them came through yet.
Instead, being a man means being tough, hanging out, playing ball, shooting craps, or sometimes shooting one another when the street gangs turn violent.
It ain't the building, it's the people up in here, you know? That's what it is, the people. They be out here shooting niggas off the porches and stuff, man. They're like when my little nephew got shot out there and thing, you know? Little 6-year-old boy, man, got killed. They caught their gang things around here, man.
There is both fear of violence here and acceptance of it, a resignation to what cannot be avoided. Rarely do the elevators run well, and even then they are havens for muggers and rapists. And the stairways are a poor alternative.
I would be afraid to go out at night by myself. And if I'm out, I would be afraid to come in by myself. After 10, when you're out, you have to walk back up. You don't know what's on the stairway waiting for you. And we don't have no security protection at all, so you can't depend on that. That sums it up. Scared.
But despite the crime and the poverty and the unemployment that breeds them, there is still a feeling among some that although the problems are large, they are not insurmountable. There are still people here who care. People who are working for change. And among them, there is no poverty of spirit. They have not given up. Catherine Wallace is one of those people. Her residents' organization, known as Truth, organized this basketball tournament, one of the few forms of organized recreation in the complex.
As I say, everybody is a potential victim. That's right. So I think
for members of the group, the main goal is to change at least one sad truth about life at the Taylor homes, that no one is ever safe.
But I feel there should be some protection up on this building, stop these kids from hanging up on this building. Right. Because people are afraid to visit you up in here. That's right. Well, that's why I know right now. Anybody will look around here, they would get scared to even come in here.
Police do patrol the grounds, but they are often afraid, say the residents, to venture inside when trouble flares. And residents also deride the ineffectiveness of the few armed security guards.
They have people running around saying they are security, but they don't secure anything, to my way of thinking.
If anyone at Taylor needs no security, it is 69-year-old Alan Abe Bush. He raised a dozen children here, all now successful by middle-class standards.
I fear the good Lord. I fear no man. You either do or you don't get it. I'm disliked plenty by a lot of them, but I don't care. Youngsters know a lot of them don't like me, but that's where it better be. Just that simple. Ain't nobody ever give me nothing. There was no aid, no relief, nothing. They say everybody up here's on aid and relief. I never done it in my life. And raised 12 children, never give me nothing. Just stayed home with my married wife 47 years. How about that? And she's still fed.
And so now you can see that it does look more or less like a prison.
But people like Ronald Robinson believe the success stories will continue to be scarce here until the management of public housing is cleaned up.
For people who don't understand public housing, have never lived in it in their lives, and don't know what the real circumstances are.
It's very easy to blame the people themselves, but I know, for instance, that it's not the people's fault that the elevators don't run.
Robinson sits on the Board of Commissioners of the Chicago Housing Authority.
Labor unions are getting rich off of public housing. There's special labor laws just for public housing. Again, contractors nationwide are reaping huge profits. So politicians are receiving contributions from the contractors and the labor unions. So everybody is shaking everybody else's hands, and the people who come out on the bottom end are the residents themselves.
Change will not come easily to the Taylor homes. It has been this way here for almost 20 years. And for those who have grown up here, those who know little besides idleness and broken homes, violence and broken dreams, this is the norm, a way of life. Yet for those who have the strength, the struggle continues to salvage a decent life, if only for the children.
If you don't have any hope, you don't have anything else. We are really not surviving here. And we would like to live, you know. So I have always had that hope that maybe one day we will live and not just survive.
It was reminiscent of the bad old days of the 1980s. Cabrini Green suddenly turned into a war zone as Chicago Housing Authority officers tried to catch several suspects in a reported drug sale. When officers caught one of the suspects, a crowd of people, including his relatives, objected. Somehow that confrontation escalated. The 26-year-old woman who was carrying a child was shot, reportedly by an officer. The crowd grabbed an officer and beat him, and shots were fired from nearby buildings, and the officers were forced back, pinned down by the gunfire. A 16-year-old boy was shot by a stray bullet. Some tenants feel the police were at fault for provoking the confrontation.
We already have it hard enough over here, you know what I'm saying? And then they bring these CHAs over here, man, they've been on this garbage, man.
CHA officials have launched an internal investigation promising a thorough accounting for what happened. While they aren't ready to comment yet on the officers' actions, they deny that CHA police have a bad relationship with Cabrini tenants. Meanwhile, they are promising stepped-up patrols to keep the Green quiet.
We are in the process of redeploying our personnel to have more police officers within the developments.
These problems come at a time when Cabrini Green itself is changing. About a third of the high-rises that were once symbols of urban violence and despair are coming down. They're replaced by a new community, a mix of private and public housing. This morning, Mayor Daley called the melee an isolated incident that he says shouldn't reflect on the community itself.
But there's one incident. You can't say this is all the time. The crime has been down there. One incident doesn't reflect the whole community.
The hope here is that the mayor is right, that this is an isolated incident and not a sign of more trouble ahead. At CHA Police Headquarters, Mike Macklewitz, CLTV News.
It ain't gonna never stop. As long as that building's standing there, this gonna keep happening.
Cabrini Green residents point the finger squarely at 500 Oak Street. They say the half-vacant building is like a target on a barroom dartboard. Only bullets are the missiles here, and gang members inside shoot back.
It makes me feel scared. Yeah, scared.
While most Chicagoans worried Thursday about a forecasted April snowfall, hundreds of Cabrini children also had a nervous eye on the sky. 500 Oak Street, after all, is right next door to Jenner Elementary, and the shooters showed no regard for school-bound kids.
It was real loud. It just had the sound of danger, and me and my mother just started running.
Everyone made it through the front line, only to have more gunfire force the children twice into the school's interior hallway. This has been going on for 2 weeks now.
Little ones cry, and, we worry about our kids. They're scared. A lot of them are scared.
And at times it seems there is nowhere to turn.
They have looked at all the apartments, but you know what? People can hide, people can move. It's a very difficult neighborhood to police.
So the community that has faced so many recent challenges...
We're just sort of recovering from the Borough X experience.
...is demanding gang members stop creating more trauma for Cabrini's kids.
And we want to come to the table with whoever's out there and whoever desires to come to the table to try to make this community a safe community for all.
If the gangs won't listen to the grown-ups, the children want to add their voices to the plea.
We need this area to play in. Not to hear shooting and all that.
Senseless death by terror isn't limited to bombs or embassies abroad. In Chicago, 2 boys, one 8, the other 7, were in court today to face a murder charge as juveniles. They pleaded not guilty to killing an 11-year-old girl to steal her bicycle. CBS's Cynthia Bowers reports.
Chicago police today say they have solved the murder of 11-year-old Ryan Harris, whose badly beaten body was found 2 weeks ago in a lot in this South Chicago neighborhood.
We are certain that we have the right criminal.
And horrifyingly, the right people appear to be 2 boys, ages 7 and 8. Today, they became the youngest children to be charged with murder in the city of Chicago. Ryan Harris's body was found here in this lot, just 2 blocks from where the 2 boys live. According to police, the 7-year-old knocked her unconscious with a stone. She was then sexually molested and finally suffocated, all because the boys wanted the bicycle she was riding. It was a police house-to-house canvass that turned up the 2 boys, first as witnesses in the case.
It's during these interviews that the kids give the statement that they're responsible for the death of Ryan Harris.
In this poor neighborhood, used to crime, many were having trouble accepting these children could be killers.
First of all, it requires strength and an incredible amount of force and an incredible amount of determination that 7- and 8-year-olds physically do not have.
I was shocked. It was hard to believe, to be honest. Yeah, I know the kids very well.
The boys accused of killing Ryan Harris will be tried as juveniles because they're under age 13, and even if convicted, they will be set free no later than age 21. Cynthia Bowers, CBS News, Chicago.
Chicago is planning to place a video camera in every police car following 2 incidents where unarmed African-American suspects were shot to death by officers. Maureen Maher has the latest on yet another big city in police brutality.
Chicago emergency.
Newly released dispatch tapes appear to confirm a Chicago police officer made a serious error in judgment in what began as a routine traffic stop.
What's that car wanted for? If it's just wanted for traffic and it's still going, tell them to stop chasing.
But the chase wasn't halted, and 2 minutes later, LaTanya Haggerty was dead. A rookie cop fired at the 26-year-old computer analyst, mistaking a cell phone for a gun.
My heart is missing a vital part of my life.
Vera Love's son was supposed to graduate from Northwestern University yesterday. But 2 weeks ago, Robert Russ was killed after Chicago police say he tried to grab an officer's gun during a traffic stop. The gun went off. Russ was shot in the heart. Even though both victims were shot by African-American police officers, community leaders say there is a long-standing pattern of excessive force used against blacks.
There is a dirty veil of silence, an evil thin blue line that lies between police officers and public accountability in this city.
But the city's mayor, Richard Daley, says don't pull his officers into a national debate.
There's not one of them out there who wants to commit police brutality and beating up people. You cannot portray those men and women like that.
7 officers are now under investigation in these 2 cases, and yesterday the Chicago coroner's office ruled the death of another man in police custody a homicide. That, in addition to a Justice Department inquiry, could make this a long, hot summer for a police department already feeling the heat. Maureen Maher, CBS News, Chicago.
A major controversy is stirring over censorship on the
I hope things come back to be better for everybody that lives around here. I lived there on the 8th floor, then I moved to the 2nd floor, then they moved me back here. And now they're trying to move me here. I'm not going.
They're finally tearing down Cabrini Green.
For decades, the red and white tenements near downtown Chicago have been a blot on the skyline, the nation's most infamous public housing project, synonymous with gangs, drugs, misery, and murder. And Cabrini Green is just the beginning. The plan is to replace all of Chicago's projects with beautiful new mixed-income developments. That means rich and poor living side by side. So what do you get when you take the country's most disadvantaged families, add in some young professionals, and build them a brand new neighborhood? Chicago is finding out. The experiment is already underway. It started with a bang and a round of applause. All over Chicago, they're tearing down the cinder block dinosaurs known here simply as the projects. They've been a disaster, with generations of children raised in the squalor. But no more. By the end of 2009, all 53 of Chicago's public housing high-rises will be gone. It's the largest demolition of public housing in the nation's history. It will uproot some 40,000 people, many of whom have never lived anywhere else but public housing. People like Larry Sargent. What'd you think when you heard that the city was going to tear down your building?
I was glad.
But you were going to lose your home.
I'd rather sleep on a cardboard box in the streets rather than keep going through what I was going through.
In Cabrini Green?
Yes. A child at 12 and 11 years old with a gun, you don't know where you might get it from.
Larry Sargent grew up in Cabrini Green, but when he took on sole custody of his baby son, he knew he had to break the cycle and get out. He never imagined that out might mean this, a brand new $70 million development just 100 yards from Cabrini Green. It's called Northtown Village, 261 condos and townhomes that represent one of the most daring concepts in public housing today. 79 families will have the chance to move out of Cabrini Green and move in here next to someone who bought one of these brand new homes at market rate. A 3-bedroom, top-of-the-line townhome like that costs nearly $500,000. The identical unit next door could be reserved for a Cabrini Green family whose rent is subsidized by the government. The project started 2 years ago with a complex mix of public and private funding. The man on the ground was Peter Holston, an idealistic developer selling this vision of gentrification with a twist.
So here's someone coming in and buying a $500,000 townhome, and we're telling him in the sales trailer, or her, that you will be living, the townhome next to you, which is no different than yours, is going to have a Cabrini Green family in it.
Basically someone who's gotten it for free.
Basically, yeah. And these people are not turning away. They're buying them.
Mark and Amanda Tomlinson bought one. Young professionals, and just engaged then, they stopped by the sales trailer the day it opened.
And I told her for kicks, bring the checkbook, and it was just a feeding frenzy in there. I mean, everybody was just screaming and yelling, and there was one lady in there that
just yelling at her husband, just buy whatever is available. It doesn't matter what it looks like, just buy whatever's left.
The Tomlinsons bought this 3-bedroom townhouse on the spot. Incredibly, all the units sold before they were even built. But why would anyone invest in a neighborhood like this? Because Cabrini Green and now Northtown Village sit just a mile away from Chicago's ritziest strip.
There's tons of shops, great stores, restaurants, and we've already seen huge big box retailers coming in.
You just gotta realize, you go 2 blocks one way, we're in the middle of the public housing. You go 2 blocks another way, we're at Banana Republic. So
finding buyers was easy. The hard sell was convincing public housing residents to apply. Peter Holston found that out when he made his pitch to a skeptical crowd at this town hall meeting at Cabrini Green.
We have 2 parks. In the unit, one park will have a top lot, and the other park will have like a splash fountain.
Cabrini residents, already angry about being pushed out, thought Peter Holston's offer sounded too good to be true.
Where are the units that are ready right now?
These people are amazed. They're waiting to get taken advantage of. They're waiting to get screwed. They're waiting to, like, something go wrong.
So they're sitting there the whole time saying, what's the catch?
Exactly. Exactly.
And the catch is?
There isn't any. The catch is follow the building rules and enjoy yourself in a wonderful brand new home.
But for many coming from the chaos of Cabrini Green, the building rules are barrier enough. On top of the obvious, no drugs, no loitering, no loud music, there's perhaps the hardest expectation of all, that they fit in with their wealthy neighbors. For Larry Sargent, it all seemed overwhelming.
Did you think you had a shot?
Not really. You know, the way it's described as mixed incomes and, you know, we're going to be condominiums and townhouses and coach houses. I'm like, just check it out, you know.
But to get into Northtown Village, Larry Sargent and the other applicants would have to pass a screening process so tough that many people simply dropped out. There's a home inspection, a criminal background check, and mandatory drug tests.
Let's just say there's some addiction issues or violence issues or something like that. You're going to have to fix it.
At the time, Candace Howell was a vice president at Peter Holston's development company. She was in charge of the screening process.
We're looking for things, red flags like criminal behavior against property, criminal behavior against people, guns, drugs, convictions. Because we're not miracle workers.
With that in mind, you might think Larry Sargent's past would disqualify him from landing a spot at the new development. He spent his youth trying to escape all that was wrong with Cabrini Green, joining the Army at 17 to get away. But after 6 years, he ended up right back where he started and spent the last 15 years struggling with drug addiction. But when Northtown Village held its first orientation meeting, Larry Sargent was one of the first to arrive.
Our goal is to try to identify the things that's going to stop you from succeeding and help you move through those things, right?
So Candace Howell made it clear from day one, Northtown Village would be nothing like Cabrini Green. She literally gave lessons on how to get along there.
You get good neighbor training. How do I go out there and be a good neighbor? You know, I mean, maybe some people don't need to know how to do that, but when you've been like watching out your door and wondering who's next door, you know, for all the time you've been in public housing, you might not want to go be no good neighbor. Am I saying that you're going to go out there and set up barbecue grills with the folks next door? Not necessarily so.
We're going to have a bunch of social events, and we're going to push the concept of building a community.
Sherry Wade was desperate for a safer community. A run of bad luck landed her at Cabrini Green 8 years ago. For her two youngest children, Travis 12 and Jamila 9, the projects have been a prison. To keep them safe, Wade says, she keeps them indoors.
Kids are supposed to go outside and play and ride bikes, and mine don't do that.
So the ones who grew up in the projects don't even know how to ride a bicycle?
No, they don't.
Larry Sargent and Sherry Wade both made it to the next stage of the application process, which included attending a meeting with some of the buyers.
We might have white neighbors on the 3rd floor, and I live on the 2nd floor, and if they come out and see my children, I want them to know that if they speak, that you'll speak back.
You know that about them already. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to be the residents that go, you know, like, don't speak to me. You know?
Yeah, we've already spoken.
Wade seemed a shoo-in.
This is going to be huge.
But her application hit a snag. Her on-again, off-again husband wouldn't pass the drug test, and she knew it. So she found herself in an incredible position. Her husband on one hand, a brand new home on the other, and Candace Howell in the middle. Can you make exceptions in a case like that?
Make exceptions for Sherry and then bring in the person next time that had a serious criminal background. They're difficult choices to make.
Sherry Wade saw the writing on the wall and made a wrenching choice. She and her children would leave her husband behind.
I couldn't keep having it happen to the whole family. It wasn't just affecting him, it affected the whole house.
Larry Sargent was determined not to let drugs stand in his way either. He goes regularly for counseling at the VA hospital now, a commitment that helped win him a spot at Northtown Village. He packed up his things, packed up his son, and left Cabrini Green for the last time. Then, just a 5-minute walk away, he began a new life, the sudden sovereign of a brand new 2-bedroom apartment.
It's your bedroom.
With a bird's eye view.
Yep, just sit right here and just watch it happen. It was, told years ago that one day all these projects are going to be gone. And I just never thought that it'd happen. But it has.
But not everyone will be lucky enough to live in a place like Northtown Village. So far, 36 high-rises are gone. But aside from Northtown Village, construction of new replacement housing has barely begun. And even when it's done, there will be 14,000 fewer public housing apartments than when the demolition began. Peter Holston says it's the biggest hitch in the city's plans.
What's going to happen to all those other families who fall through the cracks?
Well, hopefully they won't fall through the cracks, but you're right. I mean, there is a huge need. In Cabrini alone, I believe there are several thousand families left. It's going to be tight. It's going to be really tight.
This is a crisis. Mixed income isn't the answer. It's not going to accommodate. It's a fraction of the need.
The city's been trying to help others find homes outside public housing with mixed results. Some resentment has been directed at Northtown Village. There's been vandalism and a couple of break-ins. But mostly, the people who live at Northtown Village are focused on settling in.
Our next-door neighbor moved in about 2 weeks ago with her couple of girls, and they're great.
The Tomlinsons say they hope their presence here makes a difference.
There's been this cycle of isolation that's gone on for, 30, 40 years, whatever it is. And my hope is that this breaks that cycle. In 20 years from now, I think everybody will be happy we did this.
Larry Sargent is glad he did it, as we saw when we went to visit him several months after he moved in. He's been working as a maintenance man for the Holston Group. Look at this. And for the first time, he's proud to call his apartment home. Nice things on the wall.
Oh, yeah, I got that from the dollar store. Everything in here is from the dollar store.
It's still a struggle every day, he says, but he hopes the move will give his son the chance he never had.
I give him everything I got, so he don't have to be raised like I was. He'll get a chance to see another part of life at a young age. Hopefully he can take it and go from there, and don't fall into no snake pit like I did.
Sherry Wade still works hard to make ends meet, but says she's already noticed a change in her children and in herself.
Who used to go to people's houses to spend the night, now they want to come home, and I like that.
And as a mother, how does that make you feel?
Like I'm walking in the right direction.
Hospital, Chicago, Illinois, in the summer of 1966. Leaving the hospital with her mother and grandmother is Donna Barber, born just 3 days ago. Now she's going home. This baby's place in the great and prosperous city of Chicago has already been determined. She's passing through the white world of downtown Chicago. She's being taken to the so-called Black Belt on the south side, to an area of the Negro ghetto called Oakland. It took just 30 minutes to ride from one world to another. Address 3823 South Ellis Avenue. 9 families live in this building, 48 children and 17 adults.
This is a very bad neighborhood. In fact, I haven't ever lived in too many neighborhoods since I've been in Chicago, but this is the worst one. This is the worst part of this neighborhood, This building is...
If it was made to be exactly how it is, a struggle for people, struggle in to have to depend on kind of dependent bullshit.
So raggedy, It's just...
Text to speech unavailable here.